Recording in progress.
And so you've been hearing me use this word samadhi, and I've told you it's about sustained concentration, open, clear, tranquil mind. And samadhi really kind of means to gather. And samadhi translates in English often as concentration. But when we hear this word concentration, our mind wants to really start to clamp down on the intention. Focus. Concentrating. Yeah. And really bringing this kind of intensity, this is what hinders further samadhi to arise. And so going back to this translation of gathering and placing upon. So in meditation, samadhi means gathering the attention and placing it on an object. And why do we need to gather our attention? Because it's scattered. We live in a very distracted time. Maybe we always have, but it really feels like that now. We're battling distraction. And so during meditation, if you can get this sense of gathering the attention, so then with the attention gathered, you're able to place it on the object, which is usually, the anchor. Today it's really been about the body, it can be the breath, it can be looking at something intently, an object to place your attention upon. And this anchor is what keeps you grounded. It's the anchor that you come back to after you have been wandering. It's the anchor that keeps you from wandering too far. And so samadhi also occurs in big and very small ways. You may have noticed this already, this clear, quiet, tranquil mind. And sometimes it kind of peaks in very weak and almost nascent. These little blips of bliss. And today, if you really are getting into this practice and you're feeling it, you may be reaching into the depths of this samadhi state already. Feeling completely enveloped by stillness, calmness. And what's left in the mind and the heart is goodness. It's hard to put a word on it, but you can maybe sense that it's there for yourself. We really do have much goodness in our minds. And so cultivating samadhi, letting it arise, we can think about it as we're being skillful. We're being skillful with our meditation. And samadhi is always present. According to the Buddha, concentration is a mental factor that is happening all the time. Could you imagine what it would be without concentration? Our mind is just drifting and drifting and drifting. And so if concentration is here, operating all the time, then it's not something that we should have to produce. We don't have to make samadhi because it's here. We don't have to go get it. But samadhi is here, always here. And we can recognize that. There's quiet now. Oh, this is stillness. This noticing, this process of noticing. This is what cultivates and continues to cultivate peace and quietness in the mind and harmony for everything you encounter with. You see the differences in these two approaches? One you kind of have to go out and do. The other one is you kind of let come to you. It's really nice. It's this sense of easing into stillness. In our days we are very stimulated. We've got a lot of things putting input, you know. And this neutrality, these neutral moments when nothing's going on, and all we have is the breath, can feel uncomfortable. And so then we find ourselves easing into neutrality, easing into nothing going on. Ooh. But also easing into softness and stillness in the body. You can feel that, but it slowly happens on its own. You're just helping it. You know, kind of like getting into a hot tub. It feels so good, but you gotta ease into it. You know, and mindfulness, again, it arises on its own if we can place our attention on the anchor. And when we do that, what occurs, what happens? Right? Our attention stays there for a time, and then it just latches and runs off with thought. And it's like, it almost like grabs and just into the story, into the mind-made world. And then it'll stay there for a period of time, and then mindfulness arises, and it's just like a bubble popping. Mindfulness arises. All right, I'm in class right now. And then the mind notices. Oh, right. This is mindfulness. I'm being mindful. And then you're back. Again and again. And so when you notice your mind wandering, maybe call it back like a little puppy, because it's going to wander off again. And how do you call a little puppy back? This puppy mind. Gently. With patience. We don't like roll up a newspaper, you know, and sometimes we maybe feel like that, like, pay attention, meditate. We can come back, we can come back, we can come back. And so I really want to repeat this, that we don't create samadhi. Mindfulness does that. And so why does mindfulness arise? Have you ever thought about that? And so I have like two reasons. Mindfulness can arise because you're intending to be mindful. It's a precursor. Right? You're sitting to be fully present. And this intention bears fruit. And second, mindfulness arises from past moments of mindfulness. And here we are getting a mega dose of mindfulness. And sometimes you might sit there and say, what's the use? Sitting here for another breath. Maybe I'm not getting this. In every moment you're aware, even of that. Not only are you mindful, but you're also setting up for future mindful moments. So it's just really important to remember the importance of just that waking up moment, even if it's so small. And there's a Pali word, sati, which means to remember. So mindfulness helps us remember. Isn't it kind of the feeling, you know, when you notice that noticing? Oh, all right, yeah. It's a remembering. Mindfulness is just doing its job. You don't do it. Mindfulness does it. And then when mindfulness gets stronger and it gains momentum and strength through cultivation, these moments of mindfulness are happening frequently enough so that they start to get strung together. And the attention will become more steady. You know, if you think like when they start out like a film projector, you can see like the individual pictures and then it becomes a movie. It's just like samadhi. You know, mindful. This might what it feels like, and then over time, even in one session or today, mindful. There's that bit more steadiness. And then we can hold a little bit longer the attention on the anchor. They work together, they help each other out. And so mindfulness helps us gather, right? Samadhi is gathering. It helps us to do that, and then it remembers where we're supposed to be placing our attention. So we're gathering our attention and placing it back on the object. And this wake-up moment of, oh yeah, I got lost in thought, it's really a good thing. If we can feel it that way, if we see what is actually going on, that we're being mindful in that moment, that's great. And sometimes we just have this moments like where we wake up and then we're hard on ourselves because we've gotten lost in thought again. Are we really buying into that story? You know, the future is horrible in our mind. And so in that moment, and you're lost in thought, and then mindfulness arises, can you experience that moment as a good thing? You're waking up and you're realizing you were daydreaming. And from this class, you can bring your attention back into the body, wherever you're at. Even if you're just talking, listening to me right now. Can you listen to me and have your attention 60% in your seat? And having this attention, you can still think, right? And you can, bring your attention back to me, but you may notice also from here, whenever, thinking really is a feeling of contraction in the mind. When we think, our bodies become contracted, even just in the smallest way. And when we're in this mind-made world, we are identifying ourselves with our thoughts. We are believing the stuff that we are making up. And then when we believe that, well, now we're there. We're not here anymore. And notice this. Notice this on your face, really. Just this, or just like a resting tone of tension. Contraction. Everything happens in waves. Everything happens in this natural world in cycles. And so does our awareness. You may notice this. I'm really feeling it. And it's happening all the time. It's happening right now on multiple levels. So next time when those thoughts come up, see if you can feel that contraction. A sense of contraction, and maybe actually feel the physical contraction somewhere in the body. And by doing this, you become more embodied. The breath and body are one big anchor to just your attention upon. And feeling the body and breath united, feeling embodied, the body becomes an instrument that you can tune to, that you can read from, and it teaches you a whole lot. By sheer neural mass, the level of input that you get from your nerves and your body far outweighs all the other information that you receive from your other senses. It's a lot. There's a section of our brain devoted specifically to filtering out all of the information coming in, so we're not just overwhelmed with everything. Wow. And so sometimes when you're feeling that contraction, you also might notice just the softest nudge of the mind. Oh, this is contraction. Oh, I'm feeling this in my body. When that noticing happens, see what happens in the body. See if there is a release. See if there is softening. Maybe there's not. Maybe you tighten back up and feel that. All of it's going to happen. And so this waking up, this realize is kind of pleasant. And that pleasantness, you can also feel it in the body if you're awake for it. This, I'm not trapped in thought anymore. I can just relax. You know, have you ever woken up from a dream and you're just like, oh, I was dreaming. Like, we can wake up from these dreams that we're having. And so then when contraction in the mind and in the heart is released, it's pleasant, like taking off this like tight shoe. It just expands on its own. And it's wonderful if we're present for it. And so sometimes just you're in these wild thoughts and you get that brief moment of pause. And it can feel like coming home. You know, when mindfulness rises, something in you knows, this feels right. This feels like where I want to be. Being here in this present moment is where I want to be. Being with the body sitting. Being with the body breathing. It's really something that we want to do, as opposed to something that we should do. Or that's because, you know, what the instructions say, or that's what the teacher says to do. It's a huge difference. This is going back to making this practice your own. You own your experience. We choose to be present. And this feeling of like coming home to the present moment. Because we can trust this moment. There's security here. And this meditating is almost like marinating. Just sitting here letting it soak in. That's all we're doing. And it's tenderizing us. It's getting into our cells. We're feeling peace, rest, okayness on a big level. This is mindfulness meditation. Ajahn Susita says, make much of that. Linger in that. Really connect with that. Maybe right now you can sense you're marinating your whole body with awareness. Samadhi, the mind is at ease. Samadhi, the body is at ease. And when the body and mind are unified, there is only ease. And if you can imagine like swinging like a feather down pillow and it just breaks open. And the feathers spread all over the room and it's like, let's gather this. You know. And you can judge yourself from just making this big mess happen. And you start to gather these feathers and you have all this energy. And what's going to happen if you try to gather those feathers in a hurry? They're going to fly. They're going to scatter even more. And then you're frantically trying to regain all of it and regain your concentration when you have fallen out of mindfulness. And you're thinking, I've got to try harder, I'm not doing this right, and the feathers are just getting stirred up all over the place. But if we gently, patiently, persistently, slowly gather the feathers, they can gather, and they will gather. So we're gathering in a skillful way. We're not bringing too much energy into this gathering, this practice. And you might might feel, I keep getting carried away again and again. I know I'm feeling at home. This is great. Thank you, Ryan. But I don't know. You've had that, right? It's okay. You're completely content being here, but there's also no desire in the mind to be here. And the next thing you know, you're waking up and you're lost in thought, and it's like, oh, yeah. You can ask, how do I work with that? And the brief answer is infinite patience. Is there any reason you should not have infinite patience for yourself in this entire life? Is there any reason you deserve less than infinite patience for yourself? And what keeps us pulled away are these mental factors that draw us. Desire. Like, remember back to dukkha. Desire. Aversion. Restlessness. And these feelings act on our mind like hair triggers. They happen before we even notice. Right? Have you noticed that? Sometimes you're like, huh? How did I end up here? And we don't make the mind wander off. It just does. Right? I mean, does someone ever intentionally say, I'm going to be distracted right now? Sometimes, yeah, we're consciously daydreaming. But in a way that kind of makes you think that you are in charge of wrangling your thoughts. This is your job. And what that tells the little taskmaster in your head is get to work. Work harder. And that makes you think, oh, I need to jump back on that anchor. Need to come back to meditation. And what happens? This gathering, the feathers, they go all over again. And for me, the tragedy is when people say, oh, I'm not good at meditation. Or when you throw in the towel because it was really hard after just a few minutes. And that is okay. I just want to make sure people know that there is something beyond that sticking point. You just got to stick with it.